Hello my friends, welcome back to Keto and the Chaos. My name is Tammy and this is another episode of Mentor Monday. If you've been following along in my Mentor Monday series, you already have seen all the information that you need in order to get started on a ketogenic way of eating that's set for fat loss. But today is a recap and I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to get started. So you might be a little overwhelmed with all the stuff that I've taught you about in Mentor Monday. I've taught you all about how to find macros, proteins, how to use fats as a lever, how to meal plan, and how to weigh and track your food. All of it might feel a little bit overwhelming and you may not know where to start. So the point of today is to give you my 5 steps on how to get started. Step number 1, decide on your macros. That's probably the most complicated step. It can be really complicated or it can be very simple. You get to choose. So if you've decided you're going to continue on or to begin a low carb, high fat way of eating, then you're going to need to decide how many calories is going to be the perfect deficit for you. This is where it gets a little bit complicated. But you need to decide, are you going to eat under 1,300 calories, under 1,400, 1,500? You need to decide what's the best deficit for you and then use the calorie pie chart to figure out what your macros would be. Macros are just easier. If you can figure out how much protein, fats, and carbs you want to eat each day, then it's just easier to keep track in your app and you don't have to worry about the pie chart so much. Because if you figure out your perfect macros for your pie chart, and when I refer to pie chart, I'm talking about like in a tracking app, when you look at the caloric percentages, you'll have your percentage pie chart. And so if you're doing low carb, high fat, you're going to want a pretty percentage of 75% fat, 20% protein, and 5% carbs. So you're going to need to set your caloric deficit and you're going to need to add up the amount of calories you need of each of those things to equal that calorie deficit. It sounds a little bit complicated. It does involve math. The way that you do that is you're going to take proteins and carbs have only 4 calories and fats have 9. So you're going to need to decide how much of each thing you're going to eat that will add up to your calorie number. If you do that, if you can set your macros in your perfect pie chart and keep your calorie deficit low, you should still lose fat on this way of eating. But I will tell you that you may possibly lose muscle mass if your protein is too low. So just be careful. I really don't recommend going under 90 grams of protein per day for a woman. And that's just based on information that I've read through my Facebook group. From what I've studied, I just really feel like having 0.8 of a gram per pound of desired body mass or average lean body mass is just going to be safer in the long run to retain your lean muscle mass. You can choose what you want to do, but that is my opinion, so that's what I'm going to tell you to do because you're here. So, if you want to do it the easy way, click the link in the About section below, go to Ketogenic Dieters, join the group, go to the pinned post, look on page 15 of the pinned post, find the chart. It has height and sex, tells you what to eat. Super easy. Do it that way, it's the easy way. That's how I do it. It's where I got my personal macros. My personal macros are 120 protein, 78 grams of fat, and 21 or fewer grams of carbs. My caloric restriction is 1266, but I don't worry about my calories. I don't have to because my macros always will line up. If I keep my macros in check, my calories will also be in check, which is why I feel like it's important if you're starting out on keto for fat loss that you make sure you're setting yourself up for a loss by having a caloric deficit. And I'm not going to argue the benefits of calories in, calories out, or anything like that. I'm just saying, if you eat too much, you're going to be fat. That is the end of story. Everyone knows that. So in order to lose fat, you need to decrease your calories, and you need to set yourself up for success by giving yourself an easy way to keep track, which would be macros. Step number 2, gather up your supplies. So the things that you're going to need in order to be successful on keto for fat loss is the number 1 thing you're going to need is a tracker of some sort. You're either going to need a phone tracker, or you're going to need a tracker on the computer, or you're going to need to know how to track on pen and paper. But whatever you decide to do, tracker is number 1 thing that you're going to need. So I recommend Chronometer. You can do it on the computer or in your phone. It's only $2.99 for the phone app. I think it's $35 for the gold computer program, but I think there might be a free version, but I'm not 100% sure on that. You'll just have to look it up. You can use MyFitnessPal or any other tracker that you're comfortable with, as long as you make sure that the entries are very accurate. The second thing you're going to need is a food scale. It doesn't matter how expensive. You can do a cheap food scale. Go to Walmart, they have them. It doesn't have to be a super fancy food scale. You just need one that measures in grams and it has a tare button. Those are the two important things when choosing a food scale. It doesn't matter the brand, it doesn't matter the kind. Just get one, you need it. The third thing that you're going to need is some way to measure your progress. So be that the scale, be that measuring tape, be that pictures. I suggest all three. I definitely recommend taking a lot more pictures than you think you want of yourself looking extremely fat. I didn't do that. I tried to look thin in every picture. I mean, I wasn't successful, but I didn't let people take my photo very often. I really only have the set of pictures that I took on my front porch, a set of pictures that I took at a dance that we went to the first week of January last year, and I found one that I haven't shown yet that's pretty dang awful from when we went to visit Santa Claus in November of 2016, and I wasn't even at my highest weight. That one I may be pulling out at some point. I don't know. But I recommend letting people take pictures of you and making them look fat and giving yourself a lot of options, because after you lose a lot of weight, people might get tired of seeing the same old before pictures over and over. It's helpful if you have a lot to pull from. Take a lot of pictures. Not kidding. Even if you don't want to. And the most important thing is to measure yourself. Either have someone else measure you or measure yourself with your measuring tape. I keep a little record in my phone, in my notebook app, of all of my measurements every single Sunday so that I can see how much I've lost. And weirdly enough, so I'm measuring the places that I'm measuring my neck, I'm measuring each of my upper arms, I'm measuring above my bust, my what do you call that, rib cage, my waist, my hips, basically the widest part of my hips and buttocks, my both thighs at the widest place, and both calves at the widest place. And I have found that ironically, inches lost for me measuring those things are almost exactly the same as pounds lost, which is totally cool. Like I've lost 146 pounds approximately, and I've also lost 146, 147 inches approximately at this point. It's really cool to keep track that way. And when you have weeks where you put on some water weight and you see on the measuring tape that you've lost inches, it just makes you feel better so that you can push through that water weight gain and not worry so much about the scale when you have two different ways to measure your success. I also highly recommend taking pictures either weekly, or I do every 4 weeks. Because I started out really large, I knew it would take a little while before anyone would be able to tell that I was losing. And so I started out with 4 weeks. I could probably do weekly at this point now because every week I'm changing, but I'm still sticking to 4 weeks. But it's really, really cool. I'm trying to take them in the same place, in the same position, so you can really see. But the problem is I can't do the same clothes because I shrink out of them too fast. So I keep having to change the dresses, and people always make comments on my long dresses, but I started on Sunday and I wear dresses to church, and I don't like the way my legs look, so I wear long ones and long sleeves. That's just what I wear to church. So that's why I have so many lovely maxi dresses, and they're all from Amazon. Okay. Step number 3, before you eat any keto food, is have a plan for electrolytes. If you haven't watched my sodium video, if you haven't watched my original electrolytes video, watch them. You do not want to go into a low-carb way of eating without a full understanding of electrolytes and why they are important and a plan to achieve them. That's all I'm going to say here. But I highly recommend you make sure that you have your sodium and magnesium and potassium all planned out before you even get started, because you do not want to end up with the keto flu. And the way to avoid it is to make sure your electrolytes are on point. Step number 4 is to meal plan. You want to write down a list of all the proteins that you love, all the dairy products that you love, and all the veggies that you love, and your fat sources that you have access to. Then you're going to want to go ahead and choose a protein for breakfast, choose a protein for lunch, choose a protein for dinner. Then you're going to add in some veggies, veggies, and veggies. And then you're going to adjust your fats. And you're going to say, oh, do I need to cut back on fats? Do I need to choose a leaner meat? Do I need to add more fat because I chose too many lean options? That is a whole video about that. So go back to that video if you've missed it. Tells you how to do that, but meal plan is step number 4. You're going to be successful if you do this. If you do all of this before you get started, you're going to be successful. If you want to just jump in and try it, that's fine too. But just expect that you're not going to have as much success in the beginning if you don't have a plan. So I suggest having a plan. And number 5 is, in my opinion, the second most important. So electrolytes are number 1, and number 2 is weighing and tracking your food. Don't eat anything without weighing it and tracking it first. So make sure that you don't end up at the end of the day with 10 grams of protein left over that you still have to somehow consume at a time that's not a meal. Don't do that. Plan in your tracker what you're going to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then eat that exactly. That is how you will be successful in losing fat. If you're doing this for health reasons, or if you're just doing it to try it, you can do the lazy way where you don't track and you don't worry about things like that. No problem. But if your goal is fat loss, and especially if you have a lot of fat to lose and you need to lose it quickly in order for your health, track. I'm not kidding. I know you don't want to, and I know it's a pain, but honestly, it's really not that bad. And you will get to the point where it's just second nature and you don't even worry about it. I'm to the point now where I eat the same thing so many times for breakfast. I don't always track it before I eat it because I know what it's got in it. And then I will always have to add it in at some point so that I can figure out what I'm going to do for dinner. But I don't eat anything for dinner until I've tracked it and prepared it exactly the way I planned it out and weighed it out. Well, and Chef Dave, of course, helps me with that quite a bit. He is awesome. So you just need to make sure that you have a plan to weigh and track your food. There's a whole video about that too if you missed it in the Mentor Mondays. This is just a recap of what I've already taught you. You guys already know what to do. You don't need me to tell you what to do anymore. You're on your own. You can do this. Feel free to ask me questions anytime. I try really hard to answer questions and respond to comments here. I really want to help you guys. The whole point I started my channel was to share this with other people because it was working so great for me. I want to be able to teach others how to do it. And that is the whole point of Mentor Mondays. We have reached a point of Mentor Mondays that I basically taught you everything that are the basics of a ketogenic way of eating for fat loss. So I'm kind of torn as to what I'm going to teach you next week. If you have any burning questions that I haven't answered, please post them below so that I can get some ideas. Tomorrow on the live chat, I might get some ideas from you guys then. We will see. But I'm not exactly sure where to go from Mentor Mondays at this point. I mean, maybe I could break it down smaller. I really don't know where to go from here. I think I might want to do a video on muscle protein synthesis and why it's important to space your meals 4 hours apart. But I'm going to have to actually do some study on that so that I can give you a really informative video. So I don't know when I'll do that one. But I am rambling at this point. Why are you still watching this? Go get started! That's all I have for you today. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll talk to you again soon. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll talk to you again soon.